This is my Wilier Filante SLR and we're going to do a full review on it, you know, in case they bring out another one and then this one becomes a bit more reasonably priced. Guys, welcome back to the What Life. Let's roll. Let's cut straight to the chase. What's this bike like to ride? How would I sum it up? Fast, firm, high stack height, but still handles incredibly well. Now I've had this bike for maybe 4 or 5 months and I've done my fair share of riding on it. Crit races, road races, took it out to the Alps for a week and I'm now in Mallorca riding around on it for a whole week. And the other day we did Sacalobra. So I feel like I've got to good grips with it as a bike and I've really started to enjoy it, and I'm going to take you through why. So if you can bear with me, I'll give you the stats on this bike in a minute, kind of weight, tyre clearance, all those sorts of things. But let me first and foremost just point out just how much I've enjoyed the handling of this bike. I think the front end of the bike has been so super solid that all my downhill descents, all my cornering is just so much quicker when I'm riding the Wilier compared to some of the other bikes that I have at home. The other thing I like about it is the way it handles, and I do like the way it rides, but it's incredibly firm. So it can be a little bit jarring at times unless the road is super smooth. So if I'm going out for comfort and like just a really long day in the saddle, it would make it a bit more of a harder choice to dive on the Filante. As much as I now enjoy riding it, it's super firm, and part of that is to do with the way that they have shaped and molded not only just like the carbon spec that they use, but the shape of the seat stays just make, and you know, the depth of the chain stays, just make it a pretty firm ride, which does add to the characteristics of it being fast and kind of really responsive when you're out the saddle and pushing for a sprint. But there is that trade-off. You lose a bit of the compliance in exchange for a bit of that kind of sharpness when it comes to hitting a sprint, maybe in a road race or in a crit. So let me hit you with a few specs. The frame itself is 870 grams, fully built up on a high-end spec build. They say they can get the weight down to 6.8 kg. I will put the weight of my bike up on screen for you because I don't actually have it right now, but I'll go and weigh it, and I'll do that without the pedals and the mount and things like that, but obviously saddle and everything else will be included. I do wonder if it does sit at 6.8 and I'll be running tubeless, which might add a little bit extra weight with the sealant and everything, but yeah, I'll give you a real world weight for that, and I do wonder what the weight of the team bikes are, because 6.8 would be a really good weight to get down to. Anyway, frame itself is 870 grams. Now here's the thing. They say it's got tyre clearance for a 30mm tyre. I'm personally running 28s on a Farsport rim which has a 24mm internal, and it seems like there's plenty of clearance to go up to a 30, even a 32. So even though it's recommended, or it says suggested that it goes up to a 30mm tyre, I reckon you could probably push this up to a 32. So I'd say there are a few eccentricities that are probably quite unique to the Wilier, or Wiliers in general. First and foremost, the front axle goes in from the right, the rear axle comes in from the left. No big deal. They actually put a lot of effort into designing the axles, but they are very, very specific. So if you lose one, getting another one, you'll probably have to go to a main dealer to try and get hold of one. But they are lightweight. But yes, right on the front, left on the rear. Just don't ask me why. The second thing that I think is kind of makes it a little bit unique is this front end. And if you are thinking about getting an SLR, I've got a size large frame. I'm 181, 182 centimeters tall, so just under 6 foot. And I asked for a 10mm spacer, but the way that the front end of this bike is designed, with the brackets that they use to support the front, to support the bar and stem, it actually adds quite a lot of other spaces to it. So if I had known there were going to be this much kind of peripheral surrounding that 10mm spacer, personally, combined with the high stack height of the frame anyway, I probably would have gone without that 10mm spacer, because for me, having had this built up with a 10mm spacer on a large frame, the stack height is a bit high, and if I could take the time, I probably would cut the steerer tube down by that extra 10mm and get rid of the 10mm spacer that I'd originally asked for. And the reason I would do that is because of the little bracket spacers that they use to support the bar and stem anyway. So that's something to consider when you are kind of looking at this bike, because I wanted it to feel low and fast, which it is, but then having had a 10mm spacer in it, it brings the stack height up just that little bit higher, and retrospectively, I probably could have done without that 10mm spacer. The other thing worth noting is it's a BB86, which I've really grown to come to love in the cycling world, in the bike world. BB86s are, press fit, and you can get some thread together bottom brackets. Personally, I like to buy reasonably expensive ceramic bearing bottom brackets because they're so inaccessible. I'd rather put something that's kind of high quality, high value in there originally, so that I just got kind of peace of mind, I guess. And I'm a fair weather cyclist, as I always kind of say, so I probably wouldn't take this out in too many times in bad weather anyway. But yeah, the reason that I like the BB86 press fit bottom brackets is because it's a nice wide diameter, 86.5mm, which means you get more carbon underneath the width of the frame, which basically allows it to be firmer. And that's kind of where some of the strength and firmness of the frame comes from. And then this is an asymmetrical chainstay, which means one side is slightly different to the other. And again, some stiffness through the drive side. It does, honestly, when I'm out sprinting on it, it feels faster and firmer than some of my other BB86 bikes, which might be lighter, but maybe not as kind of well constructed out of high quality carbon fiber. So sprinting, straight line speed, and the handling, especially on the downhills, is something that I've really come to enjoy from the SLR. Now, one thing is certainly for sure, we can't discuss the Wilier without talking about how it looks. And it's probably one of the most kind of common observations I get when I'm riding around in this is people absolutely just kind of fall in love, firstly with the colorway of this particular model, but everyone regards it as an incredibly good looking bike. And it's, as someone that works in media, I really do agree. And there is a certain reason that I chose this particular colorway, because quite simply, it looks awesome, especially when you bring it out to a place like this. But the front end, the bar and stem, I have to say is probably one of the best looking that I've seen on a bike. With that colorway, the way that it's painted, the branding on the front end, I just think it looks so good. And this whole bike looks good. But I will point out that this colorway for this frame is an extra $800 when it comes to signing off on getting yourself one. So it's a question up to you whether you think it's worthwhile. Okay, so before we go any further, I'm going to give you the full breakdown on how I've built up my bike, the bike that you see in front of you right now. Obviously, Filante SLR frame, size large in a Mark Cavendish colorway. I've got a 100mm stem and a 380mm width bars. Obviously, same custom colorway as the frame. We've got the Wilier custom clamp on the front and then running a Coros Dure. I've got a full Shimano Dura Ace build group set on it. We're running a 5034 chainring. I can't push megawatts, don't at me. When we've got a 3411 rear cassette, and out here with some of the climbs, running that 1-to-1 ratio kind of really helps. I also have some wolf tooth lock rings to tie the Shimano rotors onto the wheel, which just complements the gold colorway of the bike itself. I'm running a Prologo Nago. This is a carbon saddle with 3D printed. It's been working really well for me, and it's pretty lightweight as well. Only other thing to point out is we have the Farsport S6 wheels, so 60mm deep, and they are a 24mm internal, running a 28mm Challenge Criterium RS tyre. Again, I'll put the weight on screen for this full build with the Look Keo pedals. So everything built up, this is the full build weight, including a bike computer. So probably one last thing to add is you can customize this bike to fit you in terms of bar length and bar width, but you can also get a different saddle rail. So you can have a 0% offset or you can have a 15% offset. So you can make a few changes so that it fits your dimensions a bit better. So let's go take this out on the road and give it a bit of a spin. Okay, so what are some of the things that I do and don't like about this bike? Let's start with everything I like about it. Obviously, the way that it looks is such a plus point. It's probably the compliment that I get most about this bike. Everyone's just like, that is so gorgeous. And I agree, it looks absolutely insane. And I'd probably go as far to say that this one-piece bar and stem, nicest in the business. Obviously, a little bit biased because it's on my bike, but yes, it looks insane. I also love the way it handles. Front end, just on this bike, I hit speeds, I go through corners, I do downhill descents. Everything is just quicker, which I can only attribute to the way that this bike is built, because everything can be the same on my SLC and all my speeds will be just a little bit slower. So I hit all my top downhill speeds on the Filante and all my cornering speeds are just quicker. I think that says a lot, but that also does kind of feature on the downside of it. It's a firm bike. It's firm at the front, it's firm at the rear, and it has a firm bottom bracket. Fair to say it's firm. So out here in Mallorca on some perfect roads, it's great. Can be a little bit bone rattling when you are at home in the UK. So, you know, you don't get the firmness and the responsiveness and being able to put the power down in a sprint without it being firm in other situations. So yeah, a possible downside to it. The other thing, it has a high stack height. Now, if I'd known, or you know, if I'd done a bit more in terms of bike fit before actually getting it set up, then yeah, like I said, I would have dropped out that 10mm spacer. So the fact that it handles as well as it does with a slightly higher stack height, I guess does again speak to just how well this bike handles itself. So this is not necessarily something that I like or dislike, but it is a very expensive bike. I think the top end Dura Ace build that I'm riding, you know, it's £11,500, 12,800 euros, something like that. It's not cheap, but what I'm going to say is the build quality on this is exceptional. Some of the other bikes that I own, the wind spaces, I like tinkering with bikes, and I find myself having to like tinker with the front end a bit, or kind of continually just make sure it's in good working order. And they ride well, they ride great. With the Wilier, I find myself not having to tinker with it at all. Like one and done, set her up, ride the hell out of it. And you know, like I said, take it to the Alps. I'm out of Mallorca. I've ridden it a lot now. So that's definitely a good thing. Build quality is exceptional, you know, that's nice. So is there a specific person that I'd say this bike is for? Not particularly, because I think it does kind of, you know, unless you are someone that is just out there looking for a comfortable bike, then it might not be for you. But for everyone else, I think you are going to find yourself enjoying this, and you put it up there with some of those, you know, top end spec bikes, you know, the S-Works and the Cervelo S5s, things like that. It is up there in terms, certainly in terms of build quality, just phenomenal. So it is definitely an option for almost everyone, unless you are just looking for a comfy bike you know, to pop around on. So who's this bike actually for? And that's actually a pretty good question. I've taken this bike racing, road racing, crit racing, and now it's kind of the bike that I gravitate to when I want to go and do something that's like hard and fast. Like, I know that it handles so well. I know that it's responsive in a sprint, and it's reactionary when the group goes and I want to push to kind of catch up with them or try and stay with them even. I know that this is going to be the bike that I want to be on because it's so good at doing those things, and it allows me to hold a higher speed through corners on a crit race or on a circuit race or on a road race, because I feel more comfortable doing it because of how well it handles and the confidence that it gives me. So that's a big tick. And the person that it might not be for is someone that is just looking for a comfy roll around bike, a comfy bike to sit on, do some nice easy rides. It's firm, I've said it before, I'll say it again. That might not be the person that the Filante SLR is for. It has a purpose, and its purpose is, I personally think, being responsive in a sprint, being reactionary when you put the power down, and handling very well. And I think it does those things incredibly well. From a size perspective, could I have gone with a medium frame and a slightly longer stem, because that would reduce the stack height on the front end? Quite possibly, but I'm not unfortunately going to be able to tell you that. But what I will say is I'm probably going to cut down my top tube, that extra 10 mil, to lower the bar just that extra little bit, because it's just not needed. And I think I like the feeling of feeling a bit more planted and being a bit lower on my bike. But just look at this thing. On a bit of a personal note, if you know me, you'll know that I love my SLC because I built it myself. It's all my own stuff. I put my heart and soul into building it. So it took a little bit of time to move away from that. And then having given the Filante like a real chance and taken it some places, I have fallen more and more in love with it. It still doesn't quite have, from my perspective, the same love that I have because I've built and put part of myself into building another bike. I love doing that. Like, that's what I like about riding bikes. That's what I like about the bike industry. So I didn't get to build this one, which I think has taken just a little bit, tiny bit off the top of me kind of really enjoying it. But riding it more, getting more and more like used to it and taking it out more, it's my go-to for racing. It's my go-to for crit races and hard, fast rides. I wouldn't change that, and that's what I like about it. You know why I love it. It's fast, it's firm, but it is a little bit bone-shattering on some not quite so nice roads. I have fallen in love with it. I think it's great, simply because it is so gorgeous. It is an expensive bit of kit. If you get it with Dura Ace, you're talking upwards of £11,000. I'm gonna leave it up to you whether it's worthwhile. I'm 181 centimeters. Like I said, I'd probably drop my stem height just a little bit because the frame itself has a slightly larger stack height. One thing's for sure though, you are going to be the envy of a lot of your riding buddies when you're riding on it. It is the one thing that definitely gets noticed the most, is just how good looking this bike is. Guys, thanks for joining in today. I hope this review was useful, and if they do, wink wink, happen to bring out a new Wilier Filante SLR in the next 6 to 12 months, maybe you might consider getting yourself a bargain with the slightly older model.